I never believed in ghosts, but my visit to Mercy Hospital would change that forever. It was a gloomy, overcast day when I entered the crumbling building. Its once pristine white walls had turned a sickly shade of grey, and the windows were cracked and broken like vacant eyes staring into a desolate wall. The entrance lobby had an air silence broken only by the sound of my persistent footsteps echoing off the cold, tiled floor. The air was heavy with the scent of decay and the flickering fluorescent light cast long sinister shadows. The sense of unease washed over me that I was determined to explore the abandoned hospital to uncover its secrets. As I ventured deeper into the building, I could hear faint whispers that seemed to dance on the edge of my hearing. I turned my head, but there was no one there. The walls seemed to absorb my presence, as if they had seen countless visitors like me, each one searching for answers. The first room I entered was the operating theater, and my breath caught in my throat. The rusty surgical instrument and tattered groanies stood as a testament of the horrors that had once occurred here. The whispers grew louder, and I thought I heard the agonized eye of patience and the back orders of a stern surgeon. I left the operating room, my heart pounding, and I continued my exploration. Each room I entered seemed to have a story of its own. In the children's ward, I could almost hear the laughter and the faint lullabies of nurses trying to snooze their young charges. As I moved further down the hall, sounds of joy turned to cries of despair. I realized that this place had seen not only healing, but also heartbreak. The morgue was my next destination, and the air grew colder as I stepped into the dimly lit room. The silence was oppressive, and I felt like an intruder in the sacred space. The whispers intensified, and I could almost make out the names of the departed. I left the morgue and ascended the stairs to the upper floor, my flashlight piercing the inky darkness. The smell of antiseptic and decay clogged to the walls, and I knew I was not alone. Shadows moved in the corner of my vision, and I could hear faint footsteps echoing in the empty hallways. The maternity ward was my next stop, and it was here that the sense of foreboding grew stronger. The cries of newborns and the snorting words of midwives filled my ears as I ventured further. Those words turned to the wails of grief and the sorrowful sobs of mothers who had lost their infant. The room was filled with echoes of lives begun, lives cut short. In one of the rooms, I found an old, dusty medical journal. It documented the hospital's decline, its final days marked by a series of unexplained deaths and mysterious disappearances. The entries became increasingly erratic, filled with delusions of a malevolent presence that haunted the hospital. As I read on, I heard a voice behind me. I turned around, but there was no one there. The whisper grew louder. The words, indescribable, It was as if the spirit of the hospital were trying to communicate to me, tell their stories and share their pain. I descended the stairs and made my way to the basement. It was a labyrinth of dark, winding corridors, and the air was thick with the scent of dampness. The sound of distant footsteps grew closer, and I realized I was not alone. Turned a corner, came face to face with a figure, his face obscured by a surgical mark, and his eyes cold and empty. It extended a trembling hand, and I could feel the cold, calming touch. Whispered a name before vanishing into thin air. I stumbled back, my heart racing. The figure had been so real, and the voice had been filled with desperation. She knew I had to find out who Sarah was and what had happened to her. As I continued through the basement, found a room that was locked. With trembling hands, I pushed the door open. Inside, discovered a small makeshift nursery. The walls were covered with drawings of children, and in the corner I found a crib with a faded pink blanket. I felt a presence in the room, and the air grew heavy. The figure from before materialized before me, its eyes filled with anguish. It whispered the name. Once more, it pointed to the crib. I knew then Sarah had been a child, a patient in the hospital, and that her spirit was still trapped in this place. With the help of the figure, I pieced together the story of Sarah, a young girl who had been admitted to the hospital for a routine procedure but had tragically lost her life. Her spirit had never been found to have peace, and she had remained in the hospital, reaching out to anyone who would listen. I knew I had to help Sarah find the closure she desperately needed with that same procedure.